Today we're looking at part 5 of chapter 3 in the book After the Natural Law, written by Professor John Lawrence Hill, and it is all about St. Thomas Aquinas' natural law and the dilemma of moral obligation. So first, what is the reasoning behind morality? Like, how is morality ultimately defined? And then also, if we're able to find those particular degrees of morality, where is the obligation for us to pursue the good? What is the motivating factor driving us toward that pursuit? So in this section, Professor Hill talks about moral voluntarism and moral rationalism. So moral voluntarism is basically saying morality is determined because God said so. It's not through reason, it is through purely the imposition of God's will that morality exists. So if murder is wrong, is it because God said so and forbade it? Or did God forbid it because it is intrinsically wrong due to reason, which is more what moral rationalism would do. Things are good and bad, and it is intrinsic to actions that something can be rationally understood to be inherently bad. This is basically the difference between, he says, like, God determining morality, or is he ratifying morality? Is he just saying, imposing it, or is he saying this is why? So he goes into multiple reasons why moral voluntarism isn't a very steady view to hold. In a way, he says, like, God could just change his mind. So for today, murder is bad and charity is good, but tomorrow God could change his mind. So then suddenly murder is good and charity is bad. So that is one thing, like, it's completely dependent on a whim, right? There's no reason or logic behind it, whereas the rationalism would use logic and reason to determine the moral outcome. And he goes into several different reasons on why rationalism makes more sense than voluntarism in his perspective, which I don't really want to get into the weeds on that, because ultimately St. Thomas Aquinas would understand that moral standards are a finite reflection of God's essence. And since God did create us, he created us to be images of him and created us in his likeness. And so that would be a piece of how, like, God created nature and human nature as that finite reflection of his own nature. So, like, in Christianity, Venerable Fulton Sheen talks about Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen, wow, he has a lot of words. He talks about how, like, marriage is a reflection of the Trinity, because a man and a woman can come together, and in the unitive and procreative act of the marital embrace, of the conjugal act, they come together and reflect, like, the Father and the Son coming together to create a third person of the same essence, just as a man and a woman come together to create a third person of the same essence, of the same DNA. And that in a way, we are made it as a reflection of the Trinity, of the Trinitarian God in that regard. As we've talked about all through these days and through this book, Aristotelian philosophy talks about virtuous living and how through simply living out the virtues, by practicing the prudence, the justice, the temperance, the fortitude, embracing the theological virtues, which isn't actually Aristotelian. So Aristotelian philosophy focuses just on the 4 cardinal virtues, which were generally accepted by materialists and everyone alike in the pre-Christian philosophical world. But by practicing those virtues, we could reach what Aristotle referred to as eudaimonia, which is basically like good-spiritedness. By acting good, we become good and therefore live a happy and fulfilled life in good-spiritedness, that we can go forward and feel the benefits from acting in those ways. His philosophy, though, left that blip that was missing that piece of obligation. Where's the moral obligation? Why must we be compelled toward this? And so in St. Thomas Aquinas' natural law theory, as Professor Hill describes here in this section, it would be that we are obligated through reason. We are rational beings, and therefore, because we can reason morality and we can be rational with it, that is what would fuel us forward, that we can look at something and through deductive logic be able to see this is truth and this is not. This is good and this is bad. And in this mindset of the moral rationalism, there are eternal truths that cannot change. Murder has been wrong, it is wrong, and it always will be wrong, regardless of the circumstance, right? Like, there are a lot of different pieces of like eternal truths cannot change. People can act out against those truths. And this is where this discussion of what is that moral obligation. And honestly, like, we are the most advanced species that live on this planet. We are the most evolved species. We have the most rationale. We have the highest ability to control our urges across the board. Like, we get to choose what we eat. We get to choose what we buy at the store. We get to choose what color we're gonna dye our hair or not. We have all of these different things that we can feel pulled toward. And then at the end of the day, we have this ability through reason to say, okay, well, I know that I'm going to have to feed my family breakfast, lunch, and dinner this week, so I better buy more than jelly beans at the store. I need to buy eggs. I need to buy bread. I need to buy whatever it might be, healthy foods, salad and chicken and whatever else, right? So we have the ability to reason. We have the ability to think and use logic and understand these things. We can understand why something is the way that it is. And because we are able to use that logic, so like a toddler does not have the same level of accountability or responsibility than an adult because they can't reason as well, right? They haven't honed any type of ability to manage their emotions, to be thoughtful about their processes to the same degree as an adult is able. So through this reason, we are then in fact bound to the law, is what Professor Hill would say, and what like St. Thomas Aquinas would say, is that through this reason, through our rationale, we are bound by the force of law to follow, that is where our moral obligation comes from, to follow what is good, to follow what is reasonable and what is rational, because we are able to. We are developmentally able to do these things, to overcome that desire to buy the Oreos, to buy whatever it might be that we know is not good for us, good for our soul, bringing us peace. And then actively choosing, like, well, I understand my experiences to be this way. I understand my feelings and thoughts and emotions, and I've tried doing it this way and it's obviously not working, so now I need to try it this way, and so now I'm going to do this. And that is through rationale, right? And you're using reason and logic through all of that, and that is where we are bound by force and by the force of law. And so it's just interesting to be able to talk about reason, talk about logic, like getting to that deductive reasoning that exists and figuring out, where are our moral obligations? What is morality? What is defining what is harmful? What is defining these pieces? Because I can think that somebody is doing something harmful and you can think that I am doing something harmful. And I can think that you're being harmful by saying that I'm being harmful and whatever else. The onus is all on individual experience, because we are human, because we are people, and everyone's experiences are valid because we're all experiences. My experience does not invalidate yours, and your experience does not invalidate mine. But it's interesting to have these philosophical conversations because there are so many thought processes in the world, and this has really just been helping me in understanding mine better and understanding those around me, and how other people may view the world, which is very different than how I do. And I think that's good. We all have that right. That's what a democracy is about. So anyway, that was all for today, though. It was a pretty short section. Tomorrow he goes into 3 objections to the natural law considered, which I am intrigued to chat about. I'm just looking forward to that. So God bless you tonight, and I pray that God grants you the resources that you need to draw closer to him, and in turn to those around you. And I pray you're able to make it a great evening or day, whatever you're watching, and whatever time you're watching. And may St. Thomas Aquinas pray for us. We'll talk to you soon.